Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to find a music producer. And I found one to tell you exactly how. This is Sean Giovanni. Here, he's the owner of the Record Shop in Nashville, Tennessee. And he's worked with Big and Rich, John Legend, and Zakk Wylde, to name just a couple of artists. So, Sean, how does a new artist go about finding a music producer?
I think when an artist is ready to take the next step in their career where they're seeking out a producer to help them with their record, the first place to start is to learn what a music producer actually does. In my experience, a music producer's job is best related to a director in a film. They're required for putting together the vision for the overall project. They are responsible for bringing in the team members, the musicians, the engineers, hiring the studio, budgeting, putting together the schedule, and overall seeing the process of the production from start to finish. In the modern music industry, the producer's role has expanded a lot. So instead of just being that director, now sometimes they are the camera operator and the boom stand holder and the accountant. In my career, I play a lot of roles in my job as a producer. I also play the job of like casting agent and looking for the talent that I think that I can help develop and take to the next stage in their career. So what you should expect to find with a producer is someone that may have one or all of those specialties. And once you understand that those are the things that are entailed within a producer, then you can determine the type of producer that is best for you. If you're a developed band or artist that is just looking for someone to help you create a specific sound, then you may want to look for a producer that specializes in that specific thing. They may have had a sound that they've created and developed, and they're known for creating that type of sound. If you're a band that is developing and looking to take the next step in your career, maybe you've established a great following in your local market and you want to expand out into a regional or national or international level, you might be looking for a producer that does a bit of artist development also. A producer that can help take raw talent and potential and build a brand around an artist, not only with the songs and the production, but also educating them and giving them the connections that they need on the business side of things to develop their career. So the first step is to understand what a producer does. The second step is to understand what type of producer you need. So after you have that figured out, the next step is to find a producer. I would suggest by starting with maybe the region that you would be looking for a producer in. I personally work in Nashville, but I work with artists from all over the country, all over the world. And they find me because they're searching for a record producer in Nashville or a studio or production company in Nashville. They generally look at my site, they see the range of artists that I've worked with, they read about my philosophy to production, and in most cases, the artists that I end up working with that come from that type of contact are working with me because of the process that I go through working with an artist, being very invested in their artistic vision and helping them create that from the ground up. The other side of my clientele is based on industry referrals, so managers, record labels, artist development companies, and artists themselves that hear about me from other artists that I've worked with or hear songs that I've produced on the radio and then go and track it down and find it. So those are some ways that you can find out about producers. One way to begin that search would be starting by looking for producers that were a part of a project that you are a fan of. There's a website called allmusic.com where you can go and search and find the credits and background information on nearly every project that's out there. So let's say that you like a record by Bruno Mars and you want to find out who produced the specific album that you really like. In some cases, you can even find out who produced individual songs. So you go on the site, you type that in, and you click on credits on their account after you select the album, and then it will give you a rundown of all the people that were involved. Usually it's pretty up to date. Sometimes it's missing some things, but for the most part, the producer doesn't usually get left out. So you'll be able to find them, and who knows? Start there. If you have something decent to present yourself with, you might get a response back. If that person is unattainable, maybe too expensive, maybe too busy, maybe not interested, the worst thing that could happen is that they might give you a referral to someone else who might be a good fit. And if it's coming from a trusted resource like that, that's a great place to start. Now, if you're unsure about the overall direction of your project, or maybe you feel like you're not at a stage yet in your career to take on a production team at that level, there's other places to start. One place to start might be the region that would be the best fit for the type of production that you're looking to do. A town like LA could be very track-heavy production, so something that is that's looking for really heavy pop tracks, something that may have a little bit of live instrumentation, maybe some like edgy rock music or more like beachy vibe, the stuff that you would expect to kind of be produced out of an area like that. If you're a trap hip-hop artist, the majority of the producers in that genre and the studios that are specializing in that type of work are in a town like Atlanta. If you're looking for something that's more songwriter driven, more high-end production driven with organic instrumentation and tracks in a diverse community, Nashville could be a really great place to look. Now, I'm not saying that if you're any one of those things that you couldn't go and create your music anywhere else, but if you're looking for the best fit for something that you're trying to create, you might want to start with the region that is best suited, possibly, for that style of music. And if you're thinking, well, I'm way too far away to be able to get to one of those places or can't afford to travel and do the production also, keep in mind that with modern technology, we do a lot of remote recording all the time. I have clients all over the world that I work with, some of which I've never met in person, but I've worked with for years and even decades. So once you've started to narrow down your list of producers that you feel like would be the best fit for your project, it's time to know the right questions to ask. The biggest thing that I see that artists miss when they get in contact with me directly is asking the right questions and knowing the questions to ask. Now, I recognize if someone hasn't gone through the process before that they may not be educated on the right questions to ask, which is precisely why I agreed to do this video. One of the good places to start is to ask the producer what type of producer there are. We mentioned earlier that there's some different approaches that producers might take to production. So you want to ask them, what is your involvement in the production process? How do you go about the process of hiring musicians if they're necessary? Do you handle the engineering also, or the mixing? How is the mastering done? How do we budget for a project? What are the costs associated with that? It's very important when you're putting together a budget for a project to not just find out what a blanket number is, but to understand where the costs are going to. In my opinion, it's very important to understand where each individual cost is going to, not just what the overall budget is. So you have an idea of what to expect about how long each process is going to take and how much energy can be put into it. It's also incredibly important to ask to hear references of the producer's work. Now, if they're a very famous producer, you might have heard some of their records on the radio, which is awesome. But if they're doing you a favor, if they're working on an indie budget, you want to make sure that the reference work that they're showing to you is something that was done on an indie budget. So always make sure that you ask them to play you something that is relevant to the type of budget that you're working with or the production process that you have. And you'll be able to tell fairly quickly if you feel like they're a good fit for your style. It's also very important to ask about timeline when working on a project. One of the biggest things that I get from clients that come to me to help me finish a project is that they were working with another production team or producer or engineer, and they had someone that was really into it, but then they got a call for a big thing and they had to bail, and they were going to be out for 6 months before they could finish the project. And they didn't have a system set up in place to be able to complete it, so they were just sort of left to figure it out on their own. There's been other cases where people are really working on it, but they just have so much work they can't get it done efficiently, and other times where people just disappear. So it's really important to ask the producer, how long do you expect a project to take from start to finish, and how long does each stage take, and have some sort of guarantee of a deadline in writing. It's also essential to ask not only how the budgeting works, but how the payments work. In my opinion, it's very important to not pay 100% of anything up front without a guarantee of work. You never know what could happen in an industry like this, and you don't want to get taken advantage of. So make sure that those payments are very clear and what you're getting. So make sure that those payment terms are very clear and that there are specific deliverables that are required for each continued payment as you go through a project.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful and that you have great success finding a producer. It can be a life-changing experience for a young artist to find the right producer to help them make their musical dream a reality. So good luck.